is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it.
Oh my God! What a goal! And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello, welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And I'll be honest, when I was playing the intro music, I was like, yeah, let me make something dramatic and not even say my welcome. Because let's face it, I'm sure a lot of you guys are still highly disappointed about that game against the Chicago Fire on Sunday night. But I gotta be honest with you guys, I think myself personally, I'm a lot more upset about the news that we got after the game that involved Jamiro Monteiro. And I'm sure by now, all of you guys know what I'm talking about. Jamiro Monteiro is potentially on the move. He's in contract talks with a couple different teams in Europe. We will definitely talk about that. Probably spend majority of this podcast talking about Jamiro Monteiro and have we seen him play his last game for the Union against Inter Miami. Obviously, we'll talk about the Chicago Fire. Disappointing night, like I said. Not much went right for the Union. Is it time to panic yet? Not yet, I don't think. Not yet. Remember, guys, I said 11 out of 15 points. 11 out of 15 points. And to get 11 points, well, one of those games, 2 of those games, you got to get a draw in. Did not think it was going to be Chicago. So we'll talk about that later. But have a good amount of MLS news, but I just know that I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about Jamiro Monteiro. No blunder of the week. I'm going to go ahead and preview the Toronto FC game on Wednesday night. It's crazy, right? Just fast turnaround with these games. Ali Bedoya goes 90 minutes again. And we all know he's going to start against Toronto and probably not get substituted out. So how tired is Ali Bedoya? I don't know. And I would have liked to have added some clips from the press conference after the game on Sunday night. But I'll be honest, I don't know if you guys listened to that press conference. It was pretty choppy. I'm not going to put terrible audio in the podcast. It would be a pain in the butt trying to slice everything together. I think I could do it, but not sure. So I'll be honest, I did not listen to much of that press conference because the audio was so choppy. But like I said, have some MLS news I want to talk about, and majority of it is going to be talking about Jamiro Monteiro. So let's just go straight into the news. Yeah, so let's go ahead and start off with Orlando City. So Juan Arango is reporting that Facundo Farías is set to go to Orlando City for a fee of $8 million. He says now the big question is, when will he go? Eduardo Dominguez, who is the manager of Cologne, where Farías plays, apparently doesn't want him to leave until the end of the season in Argentina. But Orlando City want to get him in as soon as possible. So now the question becomes, okay, when can Orlando City get this promising player? And it's been reported that Farías is one of the most sought-after prospects in Argentina. He's 18 years old. He plays as an attacking midfielder, which in my opinion would probably call the end of Pereira at the end of the season. I think he's 31, 32 years old for Orlando City. You're bringing in an 18-year-old that plays the same exact position. Yeah, there's no way you don't give him the number 10 spot when you pay $8 million for this guy. Now, could Pereira say, yeah, I'll take a reduced role? Maybe, but I'm not too sure. He was great in his first season, last season with Orlando City. This season, he's had his moments. He's definitely not playing as well as he did last season for Orlando City. But this is a lot of money for Orlando City to pay. They get brand new owners into the club. and they're already breaking their transfer fee, the highest transfer fee that they ever spent on a player. And what better player to do that to than an upcoming player in Argentina? Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are already thinking about, oh, well, didn't Atlanta United do that with Pity Martinez and Barco? Yeah, they did. And look, both of those players flopped. Is it a possibility that Farias could flop? Potentially. And I'll be honest, I don't know too much about him other than a lot of people say that he's a very, very, very promising player in Argentina. There was reports that he could potentially be going to Europe. But we're seeing this a lot. A lot of young players are coming from South America, establishing themselves in MLS, where, look, MLS, I would argue, is a lot better than the leagues down in South America. There are definitely some teams at the very top of the leagues in Argentina and Brazil that are better than MLS teams. And I've always said, look, I like our CCL over here in America, where we have the island nations, we have Mexico, we have Canada, we obviously have the USA. But I think it would be pretty cool if we could somehow get South America added to CCL play, kind of like what they do in Europe. Just get all these different countries in CCL where you have a lot of teams from different countries competing. Now, that would be cool for CCL here in America, in CONCACAF, but there's absolutely no way that can happen with the travel schedule. It's already bad enough in MLS. And, man, can you imagine going down to Brazil or Argentina on a Wednesday, Thursday night, and then you have an MLS game on Sunday? Yeah, there's no way that could be physically possible with just all the travel. It's bad enough in MLS with the travel. And, yeah, it could be bad enough in CONCACAF Champions League when teams are going from the East Coast all the way down to Mexico, when they're going all the way down to Costa Rica. And if they went all the way to South America, yeah, that would be terrible. But it would be a cool idea. You add more countries into the mix and you get a lot better opponents, but it will definitely never happen. But yeah, like we're saying, though, went off on a tangent there. We see a lot of players from South America come over to MLS. And they play well here. They'll get them moved to Europe. If they don't, then they're stuck here. Look at Brian Rodriguez with LAFC. He was supposed to be way too good for MLS. Didn't do anything with LAFC in his first season. Gets sent out on loan in La Liga. Did absolutely nothing in La Liga, and now he's back here in MLS. And yeah, it's pretty funny when everybody's like, "Oh, he's way too good for MLS. Why did he leave to come to MLS? It's going to kill his career." No, I don't think it did. I just don't think he was as good as people were hyping him up to be. And you play well in MLS, you'll get a chance in Europe. It's guaranteed. We're seeing it happen more and more often. For people to still look down to MLS. I don't know what's wrong with people, but there's your Orlando City news. Now, I was just talking about the two failures of Atlanta United, and we're still going to stick with failures for Atlanta United. So it's being reported by The Athletic that Paulo Fonseca has turned down Atlanta United. Apparently, he toured the stadium, the training grounds, met with the front office at Atlanta United. He met with Arthur Blank. And apparently he was really impressed with the training grounds that Atlanta United have set up. But at the end of the day, he said, it's not for me. Apparently he's going to just wait it out until an opportunity arises in Europe. Now, I don't know how many of you guys pay attention to the Premier League, but he was reportedly on his way to Tottenham until Daniel Levy said, yeah, I'm not going to pay the money for him. Let's go ahead and find another manager. And then Tottenham were just going through the carousel of managers. One day it would be blank manager, then the next would be this manager, then the next would be this. And They eventually settle with Nuno Esposito Santo, the ex-Wolverhampton manager. We'll see what he does with the Spurs team that, gotta imagine, if you're a Spurs fan and a Philadelphia Union fan, yeah, as of late, you guys are probably stressing because the Union aren't getting results. Harry Kane's not showing up to training. He's looking more and more likely to go to Man City. You're losing your best player. Yeah, Daniel Levy doesn't want to spend money. Atalanta is playing games with you for Christian Romero. Yeah, it's tough if you're a Tottenham Hotspur fan and a Philadelphia Union fan. I've got to imagine. Tyler, feel for you, buddy. I definitely feel for you. But Atlanta United, if I were them, I would probably just keep with their interim manager until the end of the season. That way that they can have more time to get the proper manager in. Now, I guess at the same time, Atlanta United are still not winning games. And the fans, they want results. They know they have a I don't know. Are they decent? They have some good players. Overall, that whole franchise is a mess. Win MLS in the second season, and then the wheels absolutely fall off. So I wanted to say they have a good team, but I honestly do not think that team down in Atlanta is good. They have some good individual players, but as a whole, no, it's not. And look, Atlanta fans aren't listening to this podcast, I'm sure, but if they are, look, you guys got to be real with yourselves. You guys know that you don't have a great team down there. So there is 2 MLS teams that are not the Philadelphia Union. That's all I'm going to talk about MLS teams other than the Philadelphia Union. So number 1, Kai Wagner. He has won MLS Team of the Week honors for Week 16 with his goal against the Chicago Fire. I will talk a little bit more about Kai Wagner later on in the episode, but Kai Wagner, his best game, you could say, for the Philadelphia Union of the season. Now, I guess it's easy to say that once he scores a goal, but like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, this happened, both of these things happened a couple weeks ago. Anthony Fontana and Matt Real have both got different agents. Anthony Fontana has signed with Francesco Totti, the former Roma player. He started a new agency, and Anthony Fontana was one of his first players that he brought into a club. A lot of young players on this club, a lot of Italians. And usually, right, when players get new agents, that's because they're hoping their agents has connections to get them a move out of the club that they're currently at. And I've got to imagine going to a brand new agency that Francesco Totti has started. It's pretty tempting, and Tati's known worldwide. He's surely has connections all over the world, especially in Italian football. Could Anthony Fontana potentially be on his way out? I think so. I do. Will he be the next homegrown to leave the Union? Yes. But Jack DeVries is being talked about potentially going out on loan. So I guess if you want to count that, then it would be Jack. But I think the next homegrown player that the Union are going to sell is definitely Anthony Fontana. And with him getting a brand new agent, it definitely just fuels those rumors even more. And then Matt Real, this happened even before Anthony Fontana just got a new agent. Never even heard of his agent at all, Bruno Carvalhal. Don't know too much other than he's a Portuguese agent. And you go ahead and look at all of his clients. Most of them are from Portugal. A lot of young players. So I don't know. Could Matt Real potentially be on the way out? Yes, I think Anthony Fontana has a higher chance to leave before Matt Real. But yeah, that would suck. I've talked about Kai Wagner leaving the Union. How many more times am I going to bring up the report, the interview that he did back in the winter when he said he wanted to be sold in January? Then he said the latest by the summer transfer window. Well, the summer transfer window is about to close and Kai Wagner is still here. So hopefully we keep Kai Wagner until the end of the season. And if he wants to go in the the winter time of 2022, then hey, all the power to you, Kai. But if we lost both Kai Wagner and Matt Real, yeah, that would be terrible for the Union. I guess you could put Leon Flock as the left back, but I don't know. I gotta imagine Matt Real would be happy to stay if Kai Wagner left the Union in the winter because on paper Matt Real would be the next man up. But with Jim Curtin, I guess you never know, right? Jim Curtin did say at the beginning of the season, Anthony Fontana has the keys to the number 10. No, he doesn't. So it's kind of hard to tell what Jim Curtin's thinking, what his plans are, but that's something that I think all Union fans should keep their eyes on is Anthony Fontana and Matt Real. If the names start getting linked, I think because both of these guys got brand new agents, I think that would be why we see both of these guys linked because they got brand new agents and I'm sure they've got connections all over the world. And how much longer will they be here in Philadelphia? Who knows? Hopefully, not anytime soon, but somebody's time that is looking like it's up. That is Jamiro Monteiro. Like I said, all of you guys, I'm sure, have seen on Twitter. If you guys were able to listen to that press conference chopping up, then you guys heard Jim Curtin admit that the reason Jamiro Monteiro did not play against the Chicago Fire on Sunday night is because he is in contract talks with some teams. So then Nick Fishman from Philly Sports Page, I believe he writes for, he tweets out that he talked to Jamiro Monteiro's agent, and his agent said negotiations are underway with Anderlecht in the Belgium League and Feyenoord, who is in the league in the Netherlands. And he also apparently said that a top team in Brazil and a Western Conference MLS team are interested in Jamiro Monteiro. Then Jonathan Tannenwald comes out and reports that Jamiro Monteiro hasn't been able to see his family since June, but the lawyers are working on that. And then Tom Bogert comes out and says that this has been brewing for a bit between the Union and Jamiro Monteiro. And then I saw a report, somebody said Jamiro was unhappy that the Union haven't opened contract talks, feels like he's being underpaid by the Union. So there's a lot going on. And until we get more information, I will only talk about what Nick Fishman said and Jonathan Tannenwald, not saying that Tom Bogert's wrong at all. But I don't want to speculate. I just want to talk about what we know for sure. And that is that Jamiro Monteiro is talking with a couple clubs, seeing what move is right for him. And Jonathan Tannenwald says that Jamiro Monteiro hasn't been able to see his family since June. Now, on one hand, I totally get that. You haven't been able to see your family since June for whatever reason. They're not able to get into the country. Jamiro Monteiro has a young kid at home, and not being able to go home and see your kid's got to be devastating on him. And especially when you see your teammates that are European, where their families are able to go to Europe and then they're able to come back to America, no issues. Yeah, it's got to hurt a little bit. But the one thing that's a head scratcher is Jamiro's agent said that a Western Conference team's interested in him. Now, if you want to leave because you haven't been able to see your family, then why would you stay in MLS? And the only team that makes sense in the Western Conference is Vancouver. Now, they just signed a designated player from Scotland, Ryan Gauld, I forget how to say his last name, who plays as the number 10. Now, Jamiro Monteiro does seem like he's enjoyed his time as the number 10. In my opinion, I do think he's better at the 8, but he has played well for the most part at the number 10, and I'm sure Jamiro Monteiro is thinking, yeah, I'm more of a 10 than an 8 because he's been playing nothing but the 10 this season. And maybe if you go to Vancouver, maybe it's easier to get your family in Canada. That's the only thinking I can think of for a Western Conference team. But it would make sense to go to Anderlecht or Feyenoord, where they're both European clubs. Your wife's in Europe, I believe, right now. So it shouldn't be that difficult for her to see Jamiro if he was to play for one of these clubs, Anderlecht or Feyenoord. But I don't know. It's a lot of rumors out there. A lot of things that could change from by the time you guys are listening to this podcast to when I record the next podcast on Friday night with Matt Real from the Brotherly Game. I'm sure we'll talk about Jamiro Monteiro, and I don't know, maybe when you guys are listening to this podcast, Jim Curtin will be doing his press conference before the Toronto game and after the Toronto game. So I don't know, maybe Jim says some more things about Jamiro Monteiro. Maybe they announce what club Jamiro Monteiro is going to. Maybe Jamiro Monteiro says his side of things. But like I said, I'm not going to get into speculating what's really going on other than, yeah, it makes sense that Jamiro wants out because he wants to see his family. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Definitely will talk about it more on Friday, and hopefully we get more information. But look, I looked at the stats for Jamiro Monteiro, and in 2019, we played a 34-game schedule. Jamiro Monteiro, he played in 26 games. In those 26 games, the Union won 13 games, lost 7, had 5 draws. And then in the 8 games that Jamiro didn't play, the Union won 3 games, lost 3, and had 2 draws. In 2020, we had a 23-game schedule. Jamiro played in 22 games, which the Union had 13 wins, 4 losses, 5 draws. And then the one game that Jamiro didn't play, which was also against the Chicago Fire, the Union won that game 2-1. And that's the only game that Jamiro missed in 2020 for the Union. Now, by the way, I'm just looking at MLS games. I'm not looking at playoff games. I'm not looking at the other MLS back games. Just looking at MLS games, specifically MLS games. And then in 2021, so far there's been 17 games played for the Union. Jamiro has played in 15 of those games, which the Union have won 5, lost 4, have 6 draws, and the 2 games Jamiro didn't play, the Union had 1 win, 1 draw. Now, in total, that would be 63 games played Jamiro has for the Union, with 31 wins, 15 losses, and 16 draws. And then in the 11 games that he didn't play for the Union, 5 wins, 3 losses, 3 draws for the Union. Now, I don't know. There's a lot you can make out of those numbers where it shows, yeah, look, when Jamiro's not in the lineup, the Union have found ways to win, but they've also found ways to lose. And I was looking at the stats for Jamiro Monteiro. There's so many stats you can look at, but the stats I'm going to talk about, I think, are the most important in my opinion. Jamiro Monteiro is 9th in all of MLS in pressures. Now, that's not saying that he's winning the ball back in those pressures, but he's just closing down the guy who has the ball. He is second on the Union in key passes with 27. I believe Kai Wagner leads the Union with 31. Could be off on the number. And Kai Wagner leading the Union in key passes, but I'm pretty sure it's him. But one thing I'm most certainly sure of is that Jamiro Monteiro is second with 27. Point number 3, he leads the Union in duels with 205. He is also second on the team in touches and the attacking third with 408 touches. He is tied for third in interceptions with 31. And then I'm going to throw a Daniel Gazdag stat out there because it's crazy that I can walk around the stadium and read on Twitter that people were like, oh, Daniel Gazdag's terrible. This guy's trash. He's not the answer. Look, I'm going to keep saying it. This dude's played a full season of soccer with no rest, really. The only rest that he got was the injury that he was recovering from, his knee injury. And I'm sure that's not much rest either. But Daniel Gazdag, he has 3 dribbles that led to a shot attempt, while Jamiro has 0 dribbles that have led to no shots. So for all the people that are out there that say, oh, Daniel Gazdag can't dribble, oh, he's terrible. Well, he already has 3 dribbles that led straight to a shot. So for all you people out there that are hating on Daniel Gazdag, I think that's a pretty good stat when Daniel's played not even half of the games that Jamiro Monteiro's played so far this season. So I want to throw that Daniel Gazdag stat out there, but just going back to Jamiro Monteiro, I think him, El Brujo, and Leon Flock are best players when it comes to pressing the opposition. When the Union have to do the dirty work off the ball, those are our 3 best players. Last season, when you look at it, who were our best players at pressing the ball constantly in opponents' faces? It was Jamiro Monteiro and Brendan Aronson. And we kind of found that replacement for Brendan Aronson this season in Leon Flock, but Leon Flock definitely doesn't offer the attacking abilities that Brendan Aronson did last season. But you lose a player like Jamiro Monteiro, where I don't get it. So many people I see complain saying, oh, Jamiro played bad, Jamiro this, Jamiro that. Maybe he's not having as good of a season as we saw last season for him, but I think overall Jamiro is playing really good. I think there's moments definitely in games where he disappears, but he finds ways to get touches on the ball. He's, in my opinion, other than Elsinho, the best dribbler on the team. Every time that Jamiro Monteiro touches the ball, teams are putting 2 players on Jamiro Monteiro because he's so dangerous. He's so good at getting himself out of tight spaces. He's always thinking a step ahead, always knowing a play that's going to happen before it happens. And his passing abilities, you can argue the best on the team. And so I know there's a lot of casual fans that just look at goals and assists, but Jamiro Monteiro does so much more work off of the ball than just goals and assists. And for myself, I'm sure you guys know this by now, I do give a lot of analytic stats. I do like analytics. I do like looking at the nerdy stats that your casual soccer fans won't talk about. And Jamiro Monteiro is really high on a lot of those analytical stats. And it's going to be hard to replace a player like him. Offensively, you would hope that could be Daniel Gazdag, which I think he could be. But at the same time, I don't think Jamiro Monteiro was ever supposed to be the number 10 for this club. We gave Anthony Fontana a chance at the 10 and didn't take his chances. And Jim says, all right, Jamiro, well, you and Brendan Aronson split time last season at the 10. Now you have the keys to the number 10. And we saw him start scoring goals this season at the 10, start getting assists at the 10. And it's like, okay, how do we take this guy out of the number 10 when we don't have anybody else behind him that we trust playing the number 10? We saw Casper play in the number 10 before Anthony Fontana already once this season. So the Union go out, get Daniel Gazdag, who's a natural number 10. Now you have two number 10s in Jamiro Monteiro and Daniel Gazdag, even though I think Jamiro is better at the 8, and I'm sure a lot of you guys feel the same way too. But yeah, just for all the work that Jamiro Monteiro does off the ball, it's going to be very, very hard to replace that. But at the same time, look, I said it, I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but I definitely said it to people outside of the podcast. And my sister and I can remember us leaving Subaru Park all the time talking about how grateful, how thankful that we were that Jamiro Monteiro was still on this team. How we wouldn't be surprised if he left during the winter because he had such a great 2020 season for the Philadelphia Union. And he's back for the 2021 season. And I remember Jonathan Tannenwald a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago, people were talking about Jose Martinez, which, by the way, Jose Martinez is being linked with teams in Russia. I'll make sure that Matt Ralph and I talk about those reports when we record on Friday. Because like I said, I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about Jamiro. Don't want to talk any more time about anything else news related other than Jamiro Monteiro. But Jonathan said he knows that there's a player that the Union are potentially going to transfer out. He said that it was pretty far along. Nothing is close to being done. And he said it wasn't Jose Martinez, which a lot of people thought it was Jose Martinez because these rumors started coming out that he was on his way out and then the Union signed Jesus Bueno. And so everybody's like, oh, there's the replacement for El Brujo. And Jonathan says no. And so I wonder if the player that Jonathan was talking about was Jamiro Monteiro. I haven't seen anybody ask him on Twitter. Maybe I should do it myself. I don't know. Maybe Jonathan listens to this podcast and maybe he wants to answer it on Twitter. That would be awesome, right? Was the player that Jonathan talking about Jamiro Monteiro? I don't know. Would he admit it? Maybe, maybe not. But the only way I saw, you guys heard last episode or the episode before that, the only way I saw any Union player leaving in the summer is if the Union got blown out with an offer. That's the only way that the Union would sell a player. And Jamiro Monteiro wants to leave because his family, he can't see his family. Well, now none of the cards are in the Union's hands because he wants to get out ASAP. And you can't blame him. He wants to see his family. You cannot blame him at all. And so for anybody that's angry, I don't agree with that at all. Yeah, it sucks, but I think eventually we were always due to leave Jamiro Monteiro. I didn't think it was going to be this summer, but in the wintertime, absolutely that could have happened, especially with the season that Jamiro is having. But to lose him in the summertime, you would hope that the Union would get $6+ million. I don't think that's going to happen at all now, where the Union don't have any negotiation power whatsoever. It's like he wants to leave. You don't want him to be angry. So you're going to try to do what's best for him as soon as possible. And could a bidding war happen? I think so. How much is this Jamiro's agent talking, saying, yeah, there's 4 teams that are interested in Jamiro Monteiro? I think some of it is his agent talking, trying to draw up interest. But I do think there are players in Europe, teams in Europe that are interested in Jamiro Monteiro. And we'll see who Jamiro goes to. Now, if Jamiro came out and said, yeah, he wants to stay for the rest of the season, his family is able to get into the U.S. somehow, look, I'm all for it. And hopefully you guys that were angry when you guys read these reports that Jamiro Monteiro is talking to teams to leave, well, hopefully you guys would welcome him back with open arms. But just at the end of the day, you can't be mad at the dude if the only reason he wants to leave is because he wants to see his family. Now, like I said, hopefully on Friday we get more information about this. Hopefully we can talk about this a little bit more. But those are my thoughts. Those are the stats I wanted to bring up about Jamiro Monteiro. Now, I do want to go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union versus Chicago Fire game. And like I said earlier, I'm sure a lot of you guys are still disappointed, especially because we dropped points the second time we played them, and now we just dropped points in Subaru Park. And it was Chicago's first away points all season long. They've been playing good as of late, and now that's much needed confidence. Ali Bedoya said earlier in the week that he didn't believe where they are in the table is really what kind of team they are. He believed that they were a lot better team than what the standings say, and I believe that too. And especially, look, Tyler Terrence talked about it last episode with me, where ever since Chicago switched to that back three, they're attacking a lot more. We saw that against the Union. And in my opinion, it really shouldn't come as a surprise that we struggled against Chicago, playing a man up, because the same thing happened last season when we played them. Now, the only difference is, granted, we won that game 2-1, but we allowed Chicago to come at us at that game, and it seemed like we were the team that were playing a man down. And at times, it seemed like we were playing a man down against Chicago, and they had all 11 guys out on the field, which we know wasn't the case, but it's crazy to me that we had an XG of 2.9 while Chicago had an XG of 0.4. They weren't even supposed to get a goal, and they get a goal. You look at Daniel Gazdag. He missed a header, which Bizo played a beautiful ball into Gazdag. I'm not sure how he didn't put that ball on frame. He was close. Easily could have given the Union the lead. And then you have Kai Wagner, who plays an outstanding ball to El Sino, who it was always going to be tough on the volley. Nobody was on El Sino, and he hits it wide, where if he puts that on target, probably a goal. Now, granted, at least El Sino was able to make contact on that ball, but still, probably should have done better with that. And then Ali Bedoya in the 92nd minute, I believe it was, Quinn Sullivan curves the ball around the defender, and Ali hits the ball straight at Shuttleworth's face, and ball doesn't go in. I mean, there's three really, really, really big chances right there that the Union weren't able to capitalize on. And you can go ahead and look at the goal that the Union gave up. And I'm just watching that again. And look, you can blame Bizo, which I think a lot of people are blaming. But at the same time, Ali Bedoya is the one who, in my opinion, should be marking Frankowski. If you go ahead and watch the video again, I guess it starts when Fabian Herbers is ahead of Ali Bedoya. He's able to get a cross in across the box to Sekulic. I think Bedoya could have done better to shut down Fabian Herbers. Nobody's shutting down Sekulic. And then as soon as the ball gets to Sekulic, Kai Wagner is there to shut it down, which forces Sekulic to cross the ball in. But then as soon as he crosses the ball in, it's like the Union have numbers. And yeah, Bizo gets out-jumped by Frankowski. But if you pause it, Bizo's not guarding anybody. Okay, that's fine. Bedoya sees Frankowski right in front of him with his hand up, calling for the ball. And Bedoya has a look over his shoulder real quick, I guess, to make sure that Fabian Herbers isn't making a run in behind him. Frankowski's making this run. Jimenez, I think, was also making a run into the box, which at that point, Bizo had two guys, Frankowski and Jimenez, and Frankowski beats Bizo to the header. But I don't think Bizo should have ever been put into that position, because Ali sees Frankowski making the run. He should have got goal side of Frankowski. Nope. He lets Frankowski be goal side of him. And he gets a free header. Bizo could have done better, but he just gets out jumped, right? And in my opinion, that's on Ali Bedoya as much as it is on Bizo. Now, maybe some of you guys disagree with me, say, yeah, that was 100% on Bizo because he gets out jumped by Frankowski. But Ali Bedoya sees this play happening. And none of this would have happened if Ali Bedoya was just able to shut down Fabian Herbers, if he was able to get a tackle on him, where Fabian's able to cross the ball easily to Sekulic, and Sekulic is free. Kai Wagner gets there, make sure that he doesn't shoot the ball, and all he can do is play the ball across the box again, and Frankowski's just unmarked, and it's unacceptable defending by the Union, and I think you guys know what I'm going to bring up right after this. But I do want to go ahead and review my keys to the game. And if you guys didn't listen to that episode with Tyler Terrens, my 3 keys to the game were: 1, defend set pieces well. Look, I would say that that's a pass because the Union only allowed 1 corner to Chicago. They gave up no free kicks to Chicago. So yeah, that is a pass. Number 2, I said you need to be strong defensively between minutes 46 and 60. Yeah, it's also a pass. But talked about it the last couple of episodes. Just gave up their 5th goal of the season between minutes 1 and 15. And right after I give you guys key number 3, what are we going to talk about? Giving up early goals. Number 3, I said feed Corey Burke the ball. And I would say that that was also a pass. Corey Burke had 5 shots on the night. He had an early chance in the first 10 minutes of the game, I believe it was. Actually, right before, right? It was right before Chicago scored. Corey Burke had that good chance that went just wide. Bedoya, I know, had a chance down at the other end. And then Chicago comes down and scores a goal. So I think Daniel Gazdag, Kai Wagner, Bizo were feeding Corey Burke good balls all night. He was able to get his head on the balls, have shots at the goal. They weren't on target, but at least they were finding Corey Burke. And look, that's 3 passes right there. And in my opinion, those were the 3 biggest keys that the Union needed to follow to get the win. And they don't get the win. They get a draw. It's crazy. But speaking of conceding those early goals, just Union, they start slow at the start of the game and coming at a halftime between minutes 1 through 15 and 46 through 60. The Union, they've conceded 17 goals this season, while 10 of those goals have come between minutes 1 through 15 and minutes 46 through 60. 5 goals in each of those intervals. And it is totally unacceptable. For whatever reason, the Union starts the game so slow in each of those halves, at the start of each of those halves. And it's like they're not focused. They switch off for whatever reason. And I wish I was able to go to Jim Curtin's press conference on Tuesday, today, when you guys listen to this podcast, because I would ask Jim Curtin why he thinks the Union switch off for whatever reason between those 2 minutes. Why have they given up 10 goals between minutes 1 through 15 and minutes 46 through 60? It's unacceptable. 10 out of their 17 goals that they've conceded, that's more than half of the goals that they've conceded within those minutes. 5 each. It's unacceptable. And I know I gave that stat on Twitter, and hopefully I would love for somebody to ask Jim Curtin that question, because I would love to hear his response. But I looked it up once I got home, and so in the first 15 minutes, the first minute through 15 minutes, Toronto, they've given up 8 goals between that time frame. New England, they've given up 7 goals, while Cincinnati, Nashville, and the Union are all tied for third with 5 goals given up through minutes 1 through 15. Now look, one of those is not like the other, and that is New England. They've given up 7 goals between that time frame. But the thing is, New England, they give up the early goal, they find a way to win games. New England, they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. You want to make a case that they're the best team in all of MLS? Yeah, go for it. I will not question you at all. And then in minutes 46 through 60, Kansas City and New York Red Bulls, they are tied for giving up 6 goals within that time frame, followed by San Jose, Toronto, and the Union. All of them are tied with 5 for second place. And in my opinion, what is the issue? Why are they conceding these goals? And as much as fans rag on Ray Gaddis for not doing anything offensively, I think we're seeing how much Ray Gaddis meant to this team defensively. We're missing Ray Gaddis and Mark McKenzie's leadership. They kept the defense just so well organized the last 2 years. They made sure no one switched off defensively. They were constantly pointing where players were at, positioning players where they need to be. They both of these guys had a knack for seeing the play before it happened. And yeah, it might be fun to say when Ray scores, we riot. Ray offers nothing offensively. Yeah, that might be true. But I think I might be at a point where I would much rather take Ray Gaddis's defensive abilities over what Beiser's offered us offensively. Beiser's offered us tremendous attacks going forward. We haven't had this in years from the right side of the field. But defensively, he's getting called out the last 3 games. Like I said, that goal that we gave up against Chicago, I think it was on Ali and Bizo, not just Bizo. And that's 3 straight games, in my opinion, where Bizo's had a hand in the other team scoring a goal. And yeah, we still have Andre Blake. I think he's a leader. He's a really good leader. Jacob Glesnes, he used to be team captain for his team in Norway. Yeah, I'd say he's a leader. I think Jack Elliott, we see when Ali's went off the field, Jack Elliott's got the captain armband. I think Jack Elliott's a leader. But I think Ray Gaddis and Mark McKenzie meant so much more to this team than a lot of fans realized, more than what I realized. And I do feel bad for that. I knew Mark McKenzie, I knew Ray Gaddis, they were good defensively, but I think we're starting to see that they did a lot of things that didn't show up on the stat sheet. That leadership, organization's not going to show up there. And that's exactly what these guys offered the Union the last 2 years. And it hurts. And another thing that I think we lack is pace between our 2 center backs. Jack Elliott has long legs. He can catch up to guys pretty good. But it didn't happen often. If Mark McKenzie got beat, his pace was able to catch up to that player, making sure that the Union don't give up a goal or send the ball out for a goal kick or a corner kick. We're missing Ray Gaddis and Mark McKenzie, and I'm so happy that Mark McKenzie's getting playing time over in Belgium with Genk. Hopefully Ray Gaddis is enjoying retirement, but I hope fans realize that Mark McKenzie and Ray Gaddis were a big part of the reason why we won the Supporters' Shield last season. They're a big reason why we were good defensively the last 2 seasons. Now look, we've only given up 17 goals in 17 games this season. That's a goal a game. It's not great when you compare it to what happened in 2019 and 2020, but it's not terrible either. We have 7 or 8 clean sheets this season in all competitions. It's pretty good. But I think we need to start showing Ray Gaddis and Mark McKenzie more respect than what people give them, because for whatever reason, we're switching off at the start of the game and at the start of the second half. Now, Bizo, and I forget who else panicked to shoot the ball when they were 10 feet from it, but that moment in the second half, I think it was the 75th-ish. I don't know. Definitely happened in the second half down in the river end, because Bizo had a chance to shoot within 10 feet. Doesn't shoot. There was another player, I believe, who had a chance. Forget who it was. They didn't shoot. The ball might have fell to El Senior Corey Burke. I can't remember who the ball fell to. But to not get a shot within 10 yards, now look, Chicago probably would have blocked the ball, but they panicked with the ball. They did not want to shoot that ball at all. And I think we are seeing that there are certain players on this team that are lacking confidence, especially when they have a chance to shoot the ball and they take the pass instead of the shot when they should be taking the shot instead of the pass. And I don't think this would be an issue. I don't think I would be talking about this if the Union were finding ways to win, but because they're not winning games, you're starting to notice the little stuff and people are starting to panic. And I don't think we should be panicking yet. Like I said, like I've been saying the last couple of episodes, maybe you guys are tired of hearing it by now, but I said 11 out of 15 points is what we need these next 5 games. It was never going to be realistic to get 15 points out of 15 points in the next 5 games. But I was thinking that to get those 11 points, that we would get draws against New England and New York City at home. But now we're forced to get a win in one of those games against New York City or New England. And we've got to win against Toronto and Montreal if we want to get those 11 points. I don't think it's time to panic yet. If we go out and draw against Toronto on Wednesday night, then that just means that the Union need to win against New England, New York City, and Montreal. And that's a really, 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 really tough ask to get a win at New England to beat New York City at home, where we struggle. Doesn't matter where we play New York City, we struggle against New York City. Montreal's been playing better soccer this season than what a lot of people, I'm sure, were expecting them to play this season. So that's not going to be an easy 3 points like it was last season against Montreal. So don't panic yet. Don't panic because the Union got 1 point against Chicago. I'm not panicking because I said 11 out of 15 points. I just didn't think the draw was going to come against Chicago. Yeah, 25 shots. Yeah, that's hard not to panic, right? When the Union had 25 shots, but 25 shots mean nothing to me when only 5 were on target on the night. Yeah, the Union were, I guess you can say, creating chances, but so many shots were off target, and it doesn't mean anything to me. If you're not putting the ball on target, it means absolutely nothing to me. And I know Jim talks about creating chances, how he's happy when the team creates chances, and I'm sure he was probably happy that they created 25 chances, but it's not good enough. Not good enough when you only score 1 goal off of 25 shots. It's terrible. Kai Wagner, I said I wanted to bring him up earlier. What a great free kick that he had. Terrible wall discipline by Chicago, where they had a guy behind the wall, and the wall just jumps way too soon, and Kai Wagner goes right below those guys as soon as they jump, puts great power into the ball. Shuttleworth, I'm sure, was blocked by his wall, so didn't expect the ball to go straight down the middle. Kai Wagner on the night had 3 tackles, 1 interception. He won 6 out of his 8 ground duels. He had 96 touches on the night, which Bizo, I believe, had 81 touches on the night. And Kai Wagner had 4 shots total on the night. 1 on target, 3 off target. Hit the crossbar in the first half. But Kai Wagner was definitely feeling himself on the night. In my opinion, I think that was probably his best game. He put in 6 crosses that found Union players' heads, which is great because the last couple games he's been putting crosses into the box, but they haven't been finding anybody. It's usually Bizo that's finding people on his crosses. But when both of these guys are clicking, good things should happen, but only 1 goal. And so I get it. I'm disappointed. 1 goal in 25 shots, where we see Kai Wagner, Olivier Bizo put good crosses into the box and we do nothing with it. Yeah, it's disappointing. And I think a lot of this has to go to Chicago. Credit to them. They dealt with the Union's crosses all night brilliantly. When the Union made all those attacking switches, they were good on the night. They were good, Chicago. They were good defensively in the air. And I thought they were also good just not diving into tackles when the Union were just going at them inside the box. There was obviously times where El Sino, when Ali Bedoya, when Corey Burke, these guys shook some defenders in the box, and the defenders could have went in there and tackled and knocked out the ball, and the Union had a penalty. But now they were really well disciplined in the air and not to give up a penalty inside the box. And look, and yeah, they gave up a free kick right outside of the box. It was a red card they got. I don't know how I feel about that. At the end of the day, yeah, I guess both teams got what they deserved. Only 4 shots all game for Chicago. To not even have an XG of 1 goal is just, it's disappointing. And that's all it is super duper disappointing. Like I said, I knew I would have a lot to say about Jamiro Monteiro. Now, I do want to talk about the Toronto versus Philadelphia Union game real quick. We're not going to get into Blunder of the Week, which, by the way, if you guys have any ideas for Blunder of the Week, if you see something in the soccer world that's a Blunder of the Week, maybe you guys play soccer yourself. Maybe something happened in your soccer game. Maybe you guys went to watch a rec soccer game or something and a blunder happened in that game. Whatever you guys want to give me for Blunder of the Week, you can just tweet it at me, and I'll be sure to give you guys a shout out if you have an idea for Blunder of the Week. But this Philadelphia Union game versus Toronto, their last game out, they played Nashville in Toronto. That game ended 1-1. Nashville continues to find ways to not lose, to get draws. While Toronto, on the other hand, ever since Chris Armas has been sacked, Javier Perez, who is a former Real Madrid youth coach, he has 2 wins, 0 losses, 3 draws. I believe he won Manager of the Week honors for week 15, I think it was. But yeah, look, that's a complete turnaround in 5 games where they were terrible under Chris. And now they're up to 10th place where they're starting to find some form. Haven't lost a game in the last 5 games. Jefferson Soteldo, in those 5 games, he has scored 2 goals for Toronto FC. Seems like he's starting to find form. Michael Bradley, he is tied for 7th in passes in all of MLS in the final third with 92 passes. He is also 5th in progressive passes. Remember, guys, if you don't know what a progressive pass is, that is any pass towards the goal. He also is 4th in MLS in touches with 1,290. And Michael Bradley and Soteldo are tied with 4 assists apiece for Toronto. These are 2 guys that Toronto are going to try to get onto the ball, and especially Michael Bradley. I know Michael Bradley gets a lot of hate from Philadelphia Union fans, and I'll never forget my first Philadelphia Union game in 2019, where the first game of the season, the Union take on Toronto. Cold game in March. Marco Fabian scores a penalty down at the river end. One of the first and only times that I never sat in the river end. Michael Bradley scores 2 goals on the day, and Yeah, the rest is history, right? The Union lose that game 3-1. Now, not good memories at all. But Michael Bradley, you do see a lot of defensive players, a lot of number sixes. When they get the ball, they play the ball backwards, side to side. Nope, Michael Bradley's playing the balls forward. That is why he is fifth out of every single player in MLS in progressive passes towards the goal, seventh in passes in the final third with 92. That's unbelievable. Seventh with passes in the final third, 92. Michael Bradley, this guy who people say all he does is sit back. Oh, he's making things work in the final third for Toronto. Now, if you go ahead and look in the last 5 games between the Union and Toronto, the Union have 2 wins, 3 losses against Toronto. In the last 3 games played in Philly, Toronto has 2 wins, 1 loss against Philly. That only loss that they had in Philly was that 5-0 thrashing, which earned Sergio Santos a Team of the Week card. Would be awesome if Sergio Santos got another Team of the Week card for FIFA 21 before FIFA 21 goes away and FIFA 22 comes out. And the last 5 games played between Toronto and Philly, there have been 2+ goals scored. And for some positive Philadelphia Union news, Sergio Santos has 4 goals in his last 2 games played against Toronto. Now, obviously, he scored a hat trick against Toronto, so those numbers are going to look inflated because of that. But because I'm recording this podcast on Monday night, the only player I see on Toronto's availability report is Akinola. He tore his ACL. I talked about this a couple episodes ago. For right now, that looks like that could be the only player missing for Toronto. Now, I guess some players could get added to that list come Tuesday when both of these teams have their press conferences. And then the only player that's missing for the Union is Alvis Powell. Jim Curtin did mention that he pulled his hamstring. He'll be out for 2 weeks. Anthony Fontana and Jack DeVries, they passed a concussion test, but they were listed as questionable against Chicago. Now we'll see if that changes. We'll see what Jim says at his press conference on Tuesday. In my opinion, I would look for Blake, the same back four, Bizo, Elliott, Glesnes, Wagner, same midfield, Bruhl, Bedoya, Flock, and Gazdag. And the only thing I would change is Sergio Santos on for Corey Burke, because Sergio Santos has been so good against Toronto FC the last 2 games. Now, my 3 keys to victory for the Union. Number 1, this is so important. We're going to go straight back to it. Stop conceding early goals. Toronto, they've scored 6 goals between minutes 1 through 15, but they haven't scored any within that time frame against the Union in the last 5 games played. Okay, that's positive. But it's going to change this game. I know it is, right? It's going to change. The Union have some more positive news because on the flip side, Toronto, between that time frame, minutes 1 through 15, they've conceded 8 goals and have allowed the Union to do that once in the last 5 games played. So could the Union score between that time frame? Yes. Could Toronto? Yes, they could. Do I expect it to happen? Yes, I do, because it's happening. It's happening again, and the Union just seem like they have no idea how to stop starting the game slow. Point number 2, be wary of Soteldo. Now, he only has 467 touches of the ball so far, but he's so quick, he's so shifty, he can make a lot of things happen when he's on the ball. Him and Pozuelo have a really, really good understanding of each other. They have good chemistry. Michael Bradley is constantly getting the ball to one of those 2 guys. So the Union, you just need to be wary of him. Need to know where he is at all times. Don't switch off defensively, which I don't know. I think it's going to happen. And point number 3, use Sergio Santos' pace. We lacked pace against Chicago, and the last 2 games we played against Toronto, they've not been able to hinder Sergio Santos' pace because the back line's on the older side. So let's look to get Sergio Santos the ball often. Hopefully he gets the start, because I think Sergio Santos is due a goal. Scored a goal against Toronto when we play them away at New York Red Bull Stadium, and he scored a hat trick against them the last time we played. So hopefully we can get Sergio Santos going. Yeah, he scored a goal against New York Red Bulls and then did nothing against Orlando City and Inter Miami. Jim always talks about how he's such a streaky striker. Well, let's hope that the Union can get him a goal again against Toronto. Now, I knew this was going to be a long podcast, probably the longest one I've had all season. And hopefully you guys listen from the start to the end, because a lot of good information on this podcast. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Instagram, on Twitter, or on Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod. Check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com. Wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. And like I said, I will be reviewing the game against Toronto, previewing the game against New England with Matt Real of the Brotherly Game. I'm sure a lot of you guys know who Matt Ralph is. I've listened to him on Bruce Talking Soccer with Dave Canoodle, and I'm sure I'll bring that up when I talk to Matt Ralph. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.